What happens when you mix a little Christmas magic, a special guest, and a legit movie expert? You get a very Merry Christmas episode. Happy holidays, everybody. You're listening to Open Here, a podcast produced by PACTV. I'm Tiff Phillips. Let's get started. Hi there. Hope all is well and wonderful. We have a delightful episode for you today. We worked really hard on getting this next guest for you. Our executive director, Julie, had to call in like 400 favors, and we had a very short window of time to get this guest here because this guy is super busy this time of year. That's right. We have the father of Christmas himself, the man, the myth, the legend, Santa Claus. Santa, I am so excited to see you here today. I know you are a busy, busy man, so thank you for taking the time to be here.
Anything for you, Tiff, and the Open Here podcast. I'm glad that I had a break in my schedule this season to come down and talk with you today.
So, what does a typical day look like for you?
I tell you what, Tiffany, it's very busy up there at the North Pole. You would think I would be able to take a break, but no. Day after day, I wake up, the first thing I do, I feed the reindeer. And then after I feed all the reindeer, I go to the workshop and check on the progress and make sure that we've got everything lined up for the holiday season. Then after that, I go and feed the reindeer again. That's right. And then after that, I go and consult my list. I double check it and triple check it because I want to make sure who's on the naughty side and who's on the nice side. After that, yes, I feed the reindeer again. And then I'll have a nice dinner with Mrs. Claus. And as I prepare to go to bed for the night, I feed the reindeer again. That's right. The reindeer eat 4 times a day. They need all that energy to be able to travel around the world delivering gifts to all the boys and girls around the world.
Well, I can see that because, they do a lot of work and that burns a lot of calories. So, of course, they'd have to eat 4 times a day. Totally understand that. Now, I have to say, we are a bit of a nerdy podcast here. We like movies. We like TV. Who is the best actor that has represented you in TV or movies?
I must say, Ed Asner certainly did a good job in Elf, and then Tim Allen does a fairly decent job portraying me as well. But I must say, the best performance that has the Santa Claus seal of approval would be the 1947 version of Miracle on 34th Street. That's right, Tiffany. Featuring Edmund Gwynn, he portrayed me excellent. I am very proud of his beard. I need to find out what type of beard oil he uses because I certainly need it today. How
do you feel when you see other people representing you in the community at malls or at places like that, the people who are ringing the bells on the street? Do you feel flattered? Is that something that makes you feel good about yourself?
It does when they do a good job. I don't want them to be bad Santas, though. I want them to be good Santas. But, spreading the word of Santa Claus, the joy of Christmas, as long as they're doing the right thing, they have the Santa Claus seal of approval.
That's pretty vague. That's pretty vague. So you're a busy man. What do you do to unwind?
I tell you what, Tiffany, one of my guilty pleasures, watching cat videos on that YouTube. I tell you what, you would think with this massive mass of facial hair I have on my face, I wouldn't be allergic to cats. But go figure, I am.
Aww.
So all I can do is live vicariously through those wacky felines on that YouTube. And then, of course, I always I've got a classic sleigh, Tiff, a classic sleigh. It's a Kringle 500. And I always like to do a little tweaking. I don't use it on Christmas night anymore, but I still love to tinker because every once in a while, I might take it for a spin around the North Pole.
You mean you slay all day?
Oh, Tiff! Oh, Tiff!
I'm here for you. So I gotta ask, what's your favorite part of this magical season?
I must say, Tiff, I love cookies, and that time of year, this time of year, that's the best time for me to have some cookies, even though Mrs. Claus, she doesn't like me having all these carbs, but that's my cheat day. Christmas Eve and Christmas Day, that's my cheat day, to have some carbs. And then Also, Mrs. Claus makes a very, very nice fried turkey. I know I'll have that waiting for me after I've done my rounds from around the world. I can come home to some crispy fried turkey and be able to take my boots off, let them soak in a nice foot bath, because I've been traveling on all those rooftops, Tiff. Some of those rooftops are very bumpy, and it's very hard on, Santa Claus's feet. So yes, fried turkey, cookies, and a nice foot bath.
That sounds lovely, like a Santa spa. I love it. Are you living your dream, Santa?
Tiff, of course I'm living my dream. Spreading joy to all the children around the world, to the young and the young at heart. That gives me such joy and allows me to live my dream.
I gotta say, I've always believed in you, and I still do. Do you think there's a reason why adults stop believing?
Imagine, Tiff, imagine. Adults nowadays, they are drowning in notifications and Zoom meetings, staring at their smartphones and devices. It's just a lot of information, and sometimes you lose that feeling of believing because you have so many pressures. Oh, I have to rush out, buy all the food. Oh, I have to rush out, buy all the presents. That's my hope, is that at the very least, just put down your devices, and then you'll have a chance to enjoy the season and start dreaming and believing in Santa Claus again.
Well, they better start believing, because you're real. You're here. What is the meaning of Christmas?
Tiffany, there's various meanings about Christmas, but here's my favorite. And this is from a quote from a magazine called The American, way back in the year 1889. I had a subscription to that magazine, so I know it well. I keep it framed right above the mantle. The quote off of that magazine was this: to give up one's very self, to think only of others, how to bring the greatest happiness to others. That is the true meaning of Christmas. The true meaning of Christmas. And, with all of the hustle and bustle, you can kind of dissect that, but think about it. That's what we do. We go out and we want to make people happy. All I want from Mrs. Claus every year is just a pair of socks, because I love just going out and giving gifts to all of the children from around the world, to the young and the young at heart, just to make them happy. It's that gift of giving, Tiff, that gift of giving.
Oh, that warmed me up inside. Can you tell me if I was on the good list or the bad list this year?
Tiff, you're at the very top of my good list this year. The very tip top.
What do people have to do to get on the naughty list? I mean, there must be a criteria of some sort.
You go and invade a foreign country, that puts you right on the naughty list immediately. Or, not being giving, being selfish, self-consumed, but certainly, being your best self, giving to others, that gets you onto my good list each and every time.
Well, I don't want to keep you for much longer, because I know you have a lot to do, but do you think we can close out the show together?
Oh, of course, Tiff. Anything for you.
All right. 1, 2, 3. Merry Christmas to all, and to all a good night. Merry Christmas, everybody. Well, that was a dream come true. And yes, kids, he's just as amazing in real life. Thank you, Santa. All right, we're going to switch gears and bring you a little slice of entertainment, as Dave tells the many reasons why this little movie is an old classic. And for the record, Die Hard is not it. Have a listen.
It's that time of year again. Mistletoe to be hung, presents to be gifted, eggnog to be made, mint chocolate is on the menu, and holiday travel arrangements are in the works. Of course, we now live in a day and age where travel, while still stressful, is much easier through the use of the internet to book a plane, train, or automobile. But as embodied by this 1987 movie, it wasn't so easy back then, as this movie enters its 35th anniversary this past Thanksgiving weekend. I'm talking, of course, about Planes, Trains, and Automobiles. Evoke the name John Hughes, and you'll be reminded of quotes such as, "Life moves pretty fast. If you don't stop and look around once in a while, you could miss it." Exchanges like, "Happy birthday, Samantha. Make a wish. It already came true." To scenes set to the tune of Simple Minds' "Don't You Forget About Me," as school burnout John Bender raises his fist in pride as the frame freezes. For anyone living in the 80s, we're all reminded by iconic teen-centric coming-of-age movies such as Ferris Bueller's Day Off, 16 Candles, or The Breakfast Club, among far too many other notable films. In Hughes' all-too-brief directing career, I can't think of a finer director who made his presence known in just one decade before calling it quits the next. But in this one decade, we essentially got not only a who's who of 80s pop culture nostalgia, but really a treatise on the teen genre in general. Hughes' directing work, however, was able to catch something unique about the American teen experience. They weren't being reduced to stereotypes, and thus his films didn't discriminate between the high school archetypes we saw in our youth: the brain, the athlete, the basket case, the princess, and the criminal. Hughes' work made dimensions of all of them, often dealing with the societal pressures of high school, expectations from parents, and the complications of young romance, all of them set in and around Hughes' home state of Illinois. Then enter 1987 with Planes, Trains, and Automobiles. Gone are the familiar trappings of Hughes' work such as High School Suburbia or appearances by Molly Ringwald. Instead, you're going to watch two adult professionals facing the pitfalls of holiday traveling in a pre-internet age from New York City to Kansas and beyond, all of it a desperate bid to make it back home to Chicago for the Thanksgiving holiday. Through obstacles from bad weather to pickpockets to overly joyful rental car employees, all of it totally comical, even if it's at the expense of the main characters. Enter Neil Page, a marketing executive and family man played by Steve Martin, with a sensibility tighter than cork on a bottle. His opposite, of course, is Del Griffith, an obnoxious slob of a shower curtain ring salesman who seems to be permanently affixed with garish wardrobe and a pencil-thin mustache, as embodied by John Candy. For Neil's buttoned-up personality comes Del's boorish but well-meaning behavior, as the two quip and clash with one another along the way. Their exchanges, at least at the beginning of the film, can best be summed up by this. "Did you call the airline?" Del asks over breakfast. "Everything's booked solid, but they said I have a chance of getting on standby," Neil answers. "And if they told you Wolverines would make good house pets, would you believe them?" The significance of Planes, Trains, and Automobiles is a trifecta: the casting of comedy giant Steve Martin and John Candy, along with the filmmaking talent of John Hughes. But this particular movie marks a departure for Hughes, who is a directing pro now in the 5th of the 8 movies he's directed. There are no teen characters here. Instead, it's two grown men traveling against the odds of torched cars and cruddy motels. But Hughes, with this film, departs from high school, making this film the first to represent themes like modern family, experiencing the stresses of life, career, relationships, and even fatherhood. But don't get me wrong, this is John Hughes, who in some respects shows the kind of wacky and zany situations he puts his characters in, only dialed up to an 11. One could argue that it's similar to National Lampoon's Vacation, Hughes' second film as a screenwriter that highlights the comical absurdities of the American road trip, often under seemingly controlled pretenses that go completely out the window once our main character hits the road. Planes, Trains, and Automobiles is no different in that respect, and if one were to do a deep dive on his filmography, you could see a cornerstone of his work of the vacation gone wrong with John Hughes. But Planes, Trains, and Automobiles remains my favorite Thanksgiving film, not only for its story, but the presence of both Martin and Candy. Now, up to this point, we've seen Steve Martin not just as the comic performer, but the actor, combining his skill set as a comedian with his dramatic talent. Neil is our unintentional straight man character, playing to the comic foible of Del, played beautifully by John Candy, by then a gifted improv veteran who graced the stages of Toronto and Chicago as a veteran of the comedy troupe The Second City. Here in his first directed collaboration with John Hughes, cementing a brief but fruitful relationship as Candy would subsequently appear or star in other Hughes' works. I'd encourage you, when possible, to discover Candy's work if you're not familiar. What you'll see is one of the world's best comic actors plying his trade like an athlete on the field. Our comic relief masquerading as the everyman we'd see in ourselves. Candy, at least for me, felt like the lovable friend or family member we need in our lives to reassure us that everything would work itself out. After one exchange with Neil over another travel plan gone awry for him, but perfectly for Del, Neil says to Del, "You just go with the flow," he says in frustration, and Del humbly replies, "Like a twig on the shoulders of a mighty stream." I can't think of two truly more definitive comedy actors of this decade, both at the top of their game and working with one of the decade's most celebrated directors. Planes, Trains, and Automobile's reputation has only grown in the years, and I'm grateful that it's getting the recognition it deserves in my lifetime. It's certainly no Christmas movie, of which there are plenty to pick from, but I think its status as a Thanksgiving holiday movie works perfectly as an outlier for this subgenre, and if anything, a perfect transitional movie for us as we enter the holidays. This is a movie that chooses not to follow on the family tensions that have happened in similarly themed holiday movies. Instead, it chooses to follow the stress of traveling for the holidays, all of it in an effort to celebrate how thankful we are to be with family. I hand it to this movie because at heart, it's an insightful one about being grateful. And like other Christmas movies, it's not that far off about what it teaches us as viewers. We can learn a lot from this movie, the ability to let go of how we think we can control what happens in our lives, only to appreciate the things we have in front of us. I won't spoil what happens in this film, but it taught me some important lessons about how lucky I am to have people in my life, just as Neil learns from Dell, despite the painful but very funny circumstances the two find themselves in throughout. This is no doubt done by not only the performances of Candy and Martin, but the unique touch that this John Hughes work has, even if it's 35 years later, or for all of his work in general. While this is a Thanksgiving movie, universally it's a holiday comedy. And while these comedies come and go, it takes heart to really stand out in the way that Planes, Trains, and Automobiles can. Shower curtain rings included.
Thanks, Dave. One of my favorite movies. Well, that episode was a lot of fun to record. Hope you had fun too. You know, I love the holidays because it's the only time of year we very serious adults can take a pause and take a moment and just be kids again. And whether you're a happy little elf this time of year or an old Scrooge McDuck, I hope you find some joy this holiday season, even if it's for just one magical moment. You've been listening to Open Here, a podcast produced by Plymouth Area Community Television. PACTV is the community media provider for the Massachusetts towns of Plymouth, Pembroke, Kingston, and Duxbury. To see more of our content, visit pactv.org. I'm Tiff Phillips. Thanks for tuning in. Let's hang out again soon. Hi friends, if you like this video by The Local Scene, share the love and give it a thumbs up. Don't forget to subscribe.